All right. Hi, Prince.
There you go.
How are you, first of all?
Nice. How are you?
Awesome, dude. So, as we agreed, I'm just gonna explain the context of the call like right on here so that we can establish the context first of all. So this is basically a very informal conversation, and I just know you a little bit about you from here and there. We've had online interactions. You've been a part of the debate club community, and there are certain things that I've observed about you, and I'm sure you've observed certain things about me. We're just going to have like a natural conversation and see where it takes us. And I think you might have seen the previous episodes or whatever. And we had like a very natural conversation, and it kind of like takes you in a different place depending on who you're talking to. So I'm
Right.
just like exploring this as a fun thing. So with that said, to all those people who do not know who you are, maybe you can give them an introduction.
Okay. So first of all, hi, I'm Prince. I was born in Gaya, Bihar. Currently, I'm residing in Hazaribagh, Jharkhand, and I did my graduation from Pol Science, and currently I'm pursuing PG diploma in public administration. Uh, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life.
Okay, and how old are you?
I am 21.
21. Okay, perfect, man. So I'll tell you, my impressions of you since we started getting to know each other. So I think the first time I ever had you on the sessions was like maybe like a year ago. I think maybe even a little more than that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So basically, you joined the sessions, and you always came in like prepared. Whatever the topic was, you had like the facts and figures, and you had a very like formal tone, like informed tone, like educated tone. And you had I think I guess like you wanted to come across as like a neutral observer, unbiased, and that shows. Like that shows in the way you communicate and the way you present yourself. Um, what is how has your journey been since we first met? Like how what is your perception of the debate club and what we've been doing, and general thoughts?
Yeah. So when I first joined, I joined with the perception that it is the debate club, and we will have some orthodoxy debate style,
Hmm.
the ones which you have in your schools and colleges.
Hmm.
But soon after, I realized that it's more of a discussion club, and I personally resonate with that kind of communication style a bit much because I've been part of organizations which do that kind of stuff and mostly educate people about some SDGs and stuff.
Hmm.
So that kind of resonated with me, and as you already know, my whole intention of joining debate club was my love for debating as well as the oration skills that I wanted to develop. I had some severe intonation issues which I wanted to work upon. So yeah, and
Severe what issues?
intonation issues,
Okay.
yeah. So the uh, the way it has developed is actually astonishing because it we have seen several ups and downs, we have faced several issues, and the way it has developed, I mean, recently we had a change in the whole WhatsApp structure, and
Hmm.
I could see that people were upset that we are reducing the number of groups. That clearly shows the level of enthusiasm that people have for communicating in them. Of course, I do understand that it's logistically a bit hard to
Hmm.
balance all of that, but uh, yeah, it was great to see that people were advocating for those groups to continue, and people are active throughout the week, not just on the
Yeah.
weekends.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I have no idea where it's going. I'm actually happy that we're talking about this because like this is like hard to achieve, right? Like we keep exchanging on WhatsApp. It's not the same, and I really am glad that we are doing this. And I also have some ideas. I wanted to get some thoughts on that from you as well, as we discuss things. But this debate club is not the central topic here. First of all, let's just say that's just like the way we met each other. But I'm more interested in you as a person. So you know you were talking about like how you don't know what you're doing with your life. That's a huge question. So tell me a little bit more about the background for that, and also like what are some kind of thoughts or the trajectories you're thinking about.
Of course, that's the biggest
So
question
maybe
that
I don't want it to sound like I'm your therapist and I'm asking these things, but it's more like it's just to get to know you. I think I do enjoy those kind of deep conversations, like where we explore like in depth about things. So yeah.
so uh, okay, it will sound like I'm talking to my therapist, but when I was like in 2011, I went to a place for Chhat Puja celebration, which is very popular in Bihar. And I unfortunately faced a situation where it became very popular in the regions of Bihar and Jharkhand, that there was a stampede situation, and I was present there, so I know that was. Now, don't quote me, and I'm
I
not
mean,
legally saying anything, but
yeah.
I could see that there were some administrative issues that lead
Mhm.
to that stampede. And from that time onwards, I had a certain kind of inclination, because one specific thing was in the front of my eyes, I saw a 4-year-old child die because of that stampede. So from a very early childhood, I saw what several misadministrative measures can lead to. And I saw that I had some skills that could help. So from the beginning of my life, I wanted to get into the civil services, mostly in administrative services, because that attracts me a lot.
Mhm.
So, but then with time, I got to know a lot about other stances, and uh, as of now, I'm questioning that whether that is actually my dream, or is it imposed on me by the society? Because Bihar, everyone is interested in civil services, and from the background also, I come from a family background which is in lower to lower middle level of administration. I mean, my whole family has done that. So that those are kind of the questions I'm dealing with, and also I think that up to what extent I would be able to contribute, and
Mhm.
those kind of things.
Wow, that's really interesting, man. Because I think I didn't really get this side of you, like that you were very interested in this because of a personal experience that you had. And it's also like very fascinating that you're questioning it. And how old were you when this happened?
I was 9.
9. Okay. Okay. So that was like a very early, deep experience that you had. And now you are like almost like twice the age of that. And then you're questioning those things. That's a really awesome thing, because the larger theme here I want to talk about is the fact that like as children we go through certain things, and then we get influenced by it, and then we have a certain idea as to what we want to do with ourselves, and then it takes it in a certain direction, and then we realize the naivete at the time of that creation of that desire that we had, right? And what is to say that like you are no more naive than that 9-year-old who made the desire right now, as you plan your next several years or whatever. And I think that should give you the context as to like how you should take any kind of idea that you do have right now, not so seriously, right? That it can change, that things can change, and it just like it's about like figuring out which direction to go to, um given what you know. Because like this is the whole process of every human being, I feel like. And actually I had very similar experiences, not similar experience in that nature, but similar experience in the pattern, as in like you make a desire and then like you get to a point where you realize that okay, maybe I should reevaluate. So that periodic reevaluation has to happen in your life as you like redefine the trajectory of your life. Because like um I mean, like, not invoking reincarnation or whatever, because this is the first time that we are going through life as a human being, and every moment is uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen. So what you can do is simply go off of what you know and make the best decision consciously, and then see what that did, and then refine your ability to make decisions. And over time, you just get better. You know. So it's nice that I can talk to you about these things, because like I'm really hoping that we can go deep, because like I know like that you like detail and you like depth. So the other angle to this whole incident is the fact that Bihar, first of all. And the way you talked about your family also, it seemed like there is a certain mindset about tradition, like familial traditions, that familial professional traditions. So I want to know more about that as well. And also, the other thing is that you seem to have changed, saying that the civil service is not the only way that you can have this impact. I want to know more about what are the other things that you have in mind. So a mix of all different kinds of things, but I'll let you respond some of that.
Yeah. So first of all, based on the evolutionary part, I guess it's just about will never have perfect information, and as we evolve and we get more information, we are more informed about the decisions that we should make, and we can easily analyze how and what aspects do we need to see and uh, take into account for our decisions. Because as you said, it's the first time we are going through life, and based on onto the other part, I think there because uh, I'm seeing people who are preparing for the services, and majority of them are just as you know, for the dignity and for the charm that the services comes with. So and uh, that is where I'm torn, because I know that I'm not interested, or I'm not drawn towards the services because of that charm. But at the same time, uh, you just are not sure that whether it is true or not. What was going through that 9-year-old's mind? Uh, at the same time, I also believe that it's not that if you have perfect information, you always have to change your decisions. Sometimes with more perfect information, your decisions could become more advanced, and you would have better reasons for pursuing that dream. Not saying that that reason was small. Of course, that was one of the biggest reasons why I did devote that much time of my life to this sphere of life.
No, I don't know if I can say there's anything called perfect information. It's not about the presence or the absence of the information. It's about the fact that things are dynamic. Things keep changing. Maybe it is true. It was true when you were 9 years old that that was the best option. Maybe you had the perfect information. Maybe that's all you could predict given what you had. It's just the fact that it's dynamic. It keeps changing and evolving, and what you plan for in the past is not, it's always in a sort of a linear projection of what happened in the past, right? Like your projection, your imagination of the future is always a linear projection of what happened in the past, and that too only according to your own experience. And things can change. You may have all the information and you still predict the best outcome, but it turns out that something completely unexpected happens that you could never have known. So these things keep do that's why I'm saying, like, you have to always have a periodical reevaluation, especially at critical points of change in your life, when you're changing, transitioning from school to college, or like college to beyond college. A lot of things change. So at that time, like, people have a very, I think that's where I've seen most of these kind of deep reflections about, like, what do I do with my life, kind of questions. And it happened like that for me as well. Like, I had a very similar experience, and it made me question everything. And you just, like, get drawn to making decisions more consciously after that point. So now tell me more about, like, see, one thing is, like, I remember, like, talking to you about the difference between North and the South. I think we talked about certain other differences also, like the whole caste system thing, this, that. And I want to know more about your perception of the difference between the North and the South. Have you lived in the South?
Unfortunately, not. I've lived in different regions in North, so
Mm.
I'm more aware of the things in North than South.
Okay. Then I guess you're not really qualified to comment on North versus South as such. But I've lived in both regions, and I'll tell you my perception. I just think that I never really truly appreciated the South until I visited the North. I feel like that's, like, probably the most succinct summary I can give you. It's not like the South is amazing or something. It's just that you start to notice the things that you never paid attention to. Like, for example, the relative stability, the relative economic, like, prosperity that you can witness, and like the more respectful nature of the people. Because I've had experience living in Gurgaon, Haryana. Like in Haryana, I lived in a couple Kambala as well, and lived in Assam. I've lived in Andhra Pradesh. I've lived in Bangalore. I've lived in Chennai most of my life. I've lived in. I mean, I've visited parts of Kerala, so I know like how people are in different parts of the country and stuff. And I just feel like in the north, these may be like very controversial statements, but I do want to like we need to be able to talk about these things, otherwise we will never know. So one of the things I've noticed is that especially in Bihar, I've visited Bihar multiple times, and I've been to Bodh Gaya.
Okay.
I've volunteered in Bodh Gaya a lot, so I have a significant amount of experience in that particular region, and it really shocks me, man. Bihar is a shocker. Like it the amount of poverty. It's like walking into a fucking museum, and it's a live museum that's going on, and you can see like how people used to live hundreds of years ago just by just walking into Bihar. And there is a crazy amount of lack of respect for rules or law of anything. You will see that people will climb onto your trains, and you will not even be able to walk. You cannot even go to the restroom because your seat will be occupied. You cannot even fight them. You cannot get to your seat, first of all, because that's how crowded it gets. And these people just have no respect for the rules or like sense of whose ticket this is, whatever. The TTE guy is like he's powerless against these people. It's a volume of people that just crowd your, and these are like young people traveling for work. You can see that they're migrants, and they're so pathetic. Like they will. I mean, pathetic in the sense that I'm not like criticizing them. It's just that when you see them, it's pitiful. And it's like they climb into the trains in the middle of the night. They have to go to work the next day, but they're really um, I can tell that they are helpless just from looking at them. So it's hard to be like angry at them for what they're doing. But it just speaks volumes about the nature of the economic situation over there. And Bihar is like you can call it the butt of jokes in India. um, like it's almost like an insult to be called a Bihari or something. And I'm sure that has its own psychological ramifications. I feel like collectively we are the Bihar of the world in a certain sense. So I know what it feels like, but it's like even worse, I guess. But it's like double that for you. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, do you agree with my assessment of, especially what I'm talking about is like a general situation in the north. You see the similar things in Delhi, or if you go to Haryana, it's like kind of similar. There is a certain amount of hospitality as well. Like if you, especially people know you, or they recognize you as a certain class, they will respect you. There's like a hospitality throughout the country. But I feel like people in the north are also pretty rude. They will be like openly rude, especially in Delhi, man. Like it's fucking insane. Like they don't even treat you like a customer. You walk into the store, and if you don't buy, they just like insult you. um, it's pretty bad. And it's something similar happened in Haryana as well, where the shopkeepers get annoyed if you ask questions. And this is like it's really bizarre. So these are the kind of things that I've had experience in the north that I think is uncommon in the south. And in the south, it's like a little more friendlier, and you can't see like as much poverty. Of course, you can see poverty in every part of the country, but not as much as in the north. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. When we talk in India about poverty, it's of course comparative terms. Of
Yeah,
course, as you said, we are the Bihar of the world.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I guess onto the firstly to the generic sense, because North Indians and South Indians are more or less the same people. We are genetically and in all aspects the same people. But what differs is the way the North and South has developed or has had weird consequences and weird stuff throughout history. Like I actually believe that South has been really lucky and really hardworking with during the second part of the medieval India, the medieval history, because when North Indians were still stuck in the early medieval times, the South Indians did actually do the effort to learn English, learn the European way of living, and start industrialization and other stuff, which actually helped them. Like, I'm really inspired by the way the whole of Kerala developed during the Wadiyar times, when the Wadiyars were in Mysore. So yeah, of course, they do deserve every bit of resources and the respect that they currently have. But uh, if you need to understand the situation of Bihar, it's just like what we as Indians face in the other European countries. We as Indians have a very rich history. We have had the economic resource for the greater part of the human history, and that's why ambition comes pretty natural to us. The whole of India has been pretty ambitious, and you see this in the WhatsApp groups as well, that people advocate or debate in these terms that we are one of the greatest civilizations and stuff like that. But we have to at the same time realize that uh, uh, we have not actually adapted to the modern way of living, and that is the same thing that has happened with Bihar. I mean, you rightly said that you go into Bihar and you feel like you see how people used to live 100 years ago, and I personally resonate with that, because for the past 100 years, I don't think Bihar has seen any form of development. I mean, in the recent 10 years, we are seeing a rejuvenation of Bihar and the economy is growing, but uh, for the majority of the 100 years, we have not seen anything. And when you pair that ambition and that desperation of doing anything, then you have a diversification of population, where you see one group who's exceeding in everything, who's going out, giving a fight, and succeeding in a lot of places. But the larger lot of people, due to how stats work and how the pyramid of wealth works, the larger lot of people who go out are these agricultural laborers or industrial laborers. So yeah, it is pretty pitiful that such thing has happened. But yeah, I guess the society develops how polity and economy shapes it. uh, Bihar and Bihar, UP, and some northern states have had bad luck with respect to the governance when we talk of independent India, because, of course, the ideas that our forefathers had did not resonate with what Bihar wanted. But yeah, I guess things are improving now, and at least I could see things improving with the focus more on tourism in Bihar. And it's great to hear that you went to Gaya. I mean, Gaya holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages of like the fact that you can see like how people were living back in the day is the fact that they are closer to nature in some sense. The way people speak Hindi in Bihar is very, very different from like Delhi or something else. They will say numbers also in like Hindi only. They will not use a single English word. um, and I actually like that. I feel like you can actually, especially like the time when I went to Bihar first was right after I came from the US. And honestly, I had a reverse culture shock. Even living in Chennai, like I had to like, adjust a little bit because of the way people treat you. It's very, very different. People are so much more aggressive in India overall. And also even like, you go to a bank and they just like, they don't even, are unusually polite. And you see people in the streets in the US being very polite. There's a lot more. I feel like I've faced a lot more discrimination here than in the US, and and that's the time when I actually went to Bihar first, which was like a complete shocker because like I was so fed up with the modern way of like the mindset was very different when I came back because like I saw that people were in a state of mental disease in the US a lot, and you will see that like there's one section of the society that is like very damaged, the other is like very pristine. And you see like for example people completely unable to like afford any kind of healthcare, but if you go to their hospitals it's extremely high tech and very well maintained and but barely used because people cannot afford to use it. And it's really crazy. There are a lot of things like that in the US which you don't really get to see much of. So I had a very, dystopian view of the Western civilization, and then I came to Bihar, and but the first time I saw it, it was like, wow, this is actually much better. That's the kind of like mindset I had, because like now here people living in nature. These are people who may not have much, but they will take care of each other. And I did see a little bit of that, where people are sort of like interdependent. But I did notice there's also like a lot of like class-based discrimination going on. So it was a mix. Like, I had a mixed feeling. Like I knew that this was not the best, but it felt relatively better than what I was seeing as a phenomenon in the West. And yeah, so but now that I've like sort of like more acclimated to how you need to think as an Indian, um, I do see Bihar as like a maybe like a great opportunity to see if you can build Bihar up to a point of like respectability and like economic prosperity, you can apply similar principles for the whole country and bring it to global prosperity and respectability. So this is how I see it, and I feel like somebody should take it seriously and make Bihar out of into a project, and how to see how we can solve the problem and do things. And the reason why I'm talking about this is that I want to bring one more topic, which is that you've been following that we have a brainstorming session, the brainstorming group, right? And for the past several months, we've been like doing this like Wednesday meets on 7 p.m., talking about like different topics and like figuring out how to do things. And I feel like it's time to like make it a little more official, because like I feel like it's not as good as it should be. And I feel like that's one concern that I have about everything that we're doing, is that the quality is very low for everything that we're doing. It almost seems like a, what do you call it, like a half baked attempt. We are consistently doing things, we are consistently holding like Zoom meetings, and we are consistently doing this thing, but I feel like we need to bring a bit more like authority to this whole thing, attract the best people. So if you like create a certain image, certain presence, you attract the right kind of people, and that enhances the whole situation. And so I've been thinking about creating a new organization of sorts. And I actually, this is the first time I'm talking about it. I've been thinking about it, and I wanted to talk to Sandeep as well. Sandeep is the guy who's like doing the brainstorming sessions,
Yeah.
and I wanted to talk as well. But maybe like since I'm talking to you right now, I thought I'll bring it up and see what you think. So I'm planning to create a new organization called the Indian Society of Societal Architects. Okay. So it's basically like a group of individuals who are capable of architecting society. Like, how do we actually build? How do we?
Yes.
Yeah. How do we bring the smartest people who care about these things to a point where we can all collaborate and bring actionable outcomes out of our gathering? So I wanted to be like a formal organization, and then I wanted to like basically um, do whatever we need to do to solve problems. For example, Bihar is an example, but there are a lot of other things that we can be doing throughout the country. So if you have like chapters of this organization in each city, and we can all, you know, attend, events and conferences and workshops and things where we can exchange knowledge about like what's happening in each locality, and we can come together and solve problems largely. So I want to know what you think about this.
Yeah, before that, I just want to get into your head about what you are envisioning. Is it like an NGO or just the same thing that we do? Trying to pass on knowledge to people on the ground.
No, it's not about the people on the ground. It's about like we will start with the early adopters. Like for example, I would say you're an early adopter, as in like you want to be at the forefront. You want to bring about societal change. You're ambitious about things, and you want to create a change. So it's about bringing people like that into a closed space, and we have in-depth, collaborations and brainstorming and things like that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it could work, but again, when we are talking about these serious issues, and we are wanting to bring about a change, then the first thing that we would need is some kind of firstly a lot of people who are well not, I wouldn't say educated. They are well versed with those topics and are willing and able to put in efforts for that topic, researching about stuff and engaging in the whole of discussion or whatever. And secondly, I guess if we are able to make some policy document out of it, then it would act as a great uh, by that way we could document whatever our organization has done, so that we can firstly attract more people, and secondly have some kind of manifestation of the works that we are doing. It won't be like the debate club, like we meet every day, we talk about stuff and we go. So here we can have something to show for apart from the recordings.
No, it's not about the recordings even. I don't even think that we should be recording these things. I think we should be like creating more public displays of our effort. As in, for example, we can come and talk about whatever we want. Like we will have like couple like weekend conferences in a certain city or something where everybody from around the country can come and visit, and we can have like couple of days of like series of like presentations and things like that, where we can bring in people from different cities who are working on certain things to talk about those problems, and we come together and create a, I guess, like a national mandate for what we will want to do as a nation. So this is not something that I will do by myself. I want everybody to be part of this, because
Right.
like it's not a one person's desire or vision or something. It's about like how we use collective input of multiple people to examine what's the most important thing and then draft a document uh, which will which will represent our vision and also like our priorities. So once that is done, then you would have like maybe like chapters across the country which have their own localized mandates. So you can have it's kind of like a, it's almost like a political apparatus, but it's like an entirely non-governmental, and we are not interested in politics directly. We may be wanting to collaborate with politicians who will be advancing our agenda, and use the political support of existing powers, right, to sort of like advance our body's um, vision. So this is how I'm envisioning it, and yeah. So it's not like a project kind of a thing. It's more of a movement or an organization of a larger scale. So yeah.
Yeah. Uh, the way that you are explaining it, I'm personally really interested in what that what changes that could bring, because again, it's just based on my ideology that I believe that these kind of dialogues and discussions only brings changes. We live in a democracy, and when we uh, when we make more parochial, make non-parochial choices, and make people aware of stuff, and create something out of it, then maybe with the other part that you said about the I would say pressure group style tactics, I guess it could positively impact the state as well, and not just the citizen of the nation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think eventually, like if it grows big enough, right, we can create like change simply through public, discourse, or like reshaping the narrative by being a strong influence on the narrative. For example, like we can keep politicians in check.
Right.
We could like represent the citizen interests in the kind of things that we want the politicians to focus on. So we can be a collective summary. We can create a collective summary of like the interests of the public and present the best mandate. It's kind of like a think tank. Okay, it's more like a think tank than it is like a public organization or something like that. That's why the name is called Indian Society of Societal Architects. So when I say societal architect, it's about like people who are consciously architecting the society by having strong principles. In a similar way that you would architect a building, because you're going to look at who are the inhabitants of this building, who are going to be using this building, what is the lifespan of this building, what kind of a foundation are we building it in, what kind of amenities do we need. All of these things go into the consideration when they're architecting a building. So why should we not do something similar for the larger society? Because the principles are the same. It's like you have human beings, we all grow up the same way. Like we are born and we age, and there is not a lot of variables over there. It's all the same. And we have different requirements, multi dimensions of requirements that we have to factor in into constructing a society. For example, some of the things that we could be talking about are like, how do we approach education, or how do we approach sanitization? How do we approach transportation? So I have this vision of like multiple broad dimensions. For example, physical infrastructure is one department, and then like cultural aspect is another department, and then economic is another department. Another is like I guess technological or like scientific. So these are all like various layers of nation building. Every society has to have like foundations in all of these, so that like everything works optimally. Even like for example, when I talked about culture, I'm talking about like things like how do we approach sex as a topic, or how do we approach dating, or how do we approach marriages, how do we approach the raising of children, and who has authority. All these things are cultural aspects that define the health of a society. So we need to have like people consciously framing these, rather than people relying on traditionally inherited wisdom, because like what was true some time ago may not hold true today. So you need to have people looking forward, and crafting principles and culture from a forward facing vision. Okay, this is the direction in which we are heading, and this is what we need to do right now to get there. So let's all adopt this, and they have to be persuasive, not like they can't be like trying to force this down somebody's throat. That doesn't work, not anymore. If you were maybe like 400 years ago, if you could have gathered enough firepower, you can do it. There is way too much regulation for you to force down people's throat. You have to inspire, you have to educate and persuade and inspire. Only then you can bring about change. And that means, especially for this generation, right, the younger generation, I think we are fortunate to have them as younger generation, because I think the younger generation is more logically oriented. They are not as easily accessible to traditional wisdom, or traditional, um, just inheriting things without understanding and then following it because that's what worked for everybody. Because if you look at our generation, like I think maybe even a little bit older than you, you would see that people all grew up in sort of like pockets. You are not as globalized as people are today. Today, like a 15-year-old can go online and see what the global culture is, and they can make an informed decision based on all of what they're seeing. They are less available to the inheritance of inclinations, so they are more available for like consciously thinking about things and doing that. And I think that's a blessing. And I think when a climate like that, if you have like people like in my age group, so I'm a millennial, so I have a little more experience than you guys, but I've had very similar concerns, because like I it wasn't like so long ago that I was also a child, and I grew up in this in a more or less globalized society. We were still like getting um, pop culture from the West coming in, gaming or media, all these things that showed us what the rest of the world is like, and we share similar concerns, similar interests, but I'm a little more experienced. So we have a lot of people in that category, people who have like vast amounts of experience, and they have a very similar line of thought than as to what the younger people want. And we can be the ones to establish the base for all of us as to come together as a society to have a forward facing vision for what this country is going to be like. And that is missing, because in India, like, we have people looking backward, looking sideways, because they're all looking at like what other person is doing instead of like looking at having a vision for themselves. So these people, like the sideways people, are like the majority, I would say. The backward facing people are like they are like slowly they're moving into a generation of irrelevance, if you want to say that. But yeah, so and we are like moving closer to a forward facing society, and we need to be the forefront of that, because I think that's an exciting place to be, right? Because anyway, inevitably we are going there, and it is a fun thing for us to be in that space where we can create the infrastructure that you know maybe potentially the rest of the generations can use to create like conscious change in society in a very structured and scientific approach, where there is a certain respectability to the public discourse that happens because of us. That's kind of like similar to what we are trying to do with the debate club, but I really don't think that it's the right platform for creating a large change of the scale that I want to see. So yeah.
And just adding to what you said, the way that we do stuff, I guess it won't be like the current think tanks that currently exist. You know, the bourgeois class of think tanks, and it would be more democratic, just because the way we work in the debate club. Later, it would that club is pretty democratic, and we do things based on the majority, even though that's not the best thing at most times. But yeah, we do that.
No, it's not
And
about that. It's more about the fact that we are wanting to adhere to principles over authoritative control, because it's that emphasis on principles that is something new to India. I think I feel like here there is rarely any explicitly stated agendas. People don't communicate at all. Like I feel like people just do not communicate here. Even the government, they very honestly, like they're pretty clueless about like how to signal and how to message to the people, how to position themselves. They're kind of clueless, and they just think that they can overuse authority to compromise on, like, for the lack of suave when it comes to like communication. And I think that's where we can be different. We can be more conscious of like how we position ourselves and how we brand ourselves, or like how we create the infrastructure for internal organization.
and these kind of issues from the government's side, these leads to the CA types protest, which was not necessary, because if the government would have communicated it well, then the CA had nothing to do with people of India. And what I guess the current government, or rather the Indian government, faces is that there's a false consciousness that's created by this elite class of people who are not actually well connected with the roots or the ground to know what's the current what the people currently want, and that creates a huge divergence in what the government wants and what the people want. I mean, uh, the people currently are in dire need of spending on primary health care or primary education, and the government actually, according to me, has no idea, because we are spending like 3% of our GDP on education. That's way beyond par, especially at a time when we have to use our demographic dividend. And if we don't skill our youth, then what good is that population? I mean, it would rather be a burden on the whole state.
Yeah. Um, See, I think what you're talking about is not common, not like exclusive to India. I think this is the complaint that every people have towards their societies or governments, right? I think that is the way that I've seen this. I think that there is a you know like poverty of evolution of the communication infrastructure, because the way things have changed in the globe, the scale of things at which things are happening because of technological evolution is massive. But we are not countering, or like we're not matching up with the evolution of our communication protocols. See, I can talk to you from a long distance. This is still like relying on in-person communication, but the dynamics are different. The context is different. We are not in the same place. This seems like a very non-existent distinction, but this actually changes everything. I can now talk to somebody in the other side of the planet that is physically impossible if not for this technology. And this is happening at a massive scale across the world. All kinds of connections are being happening. And you really have to understand that there is a way that human beings perceive reality and how we construct these mental models of reality. Now, this is all like completely garbled. I personally feel like this is one of the reasons why there is so much like mental distress, is because like there is so many various points of inputs to our mental model of reality, that if you do not construct that mental model with with sufficient enough intellectual discipline, you are going to reach a state where you are really confused about what's going on. You may have a very garbled mental model of reality, and that is a recipe for mental illness. Because essentially, what depression is, or what schizophrenia is, or what any of these other diseases are, right? They are a certain like gap between your understanding of reality and what reality is, right? And I mean, this is a, you can say that this is a theory of looking.
Yeah, but I would just, sorry to interrupt, but I would just say that is it just based on communication? I guess the level at which technology has advanced in the past 20-25 years, I guess our little monkey brain is not able to adapt at that speed, and that has created issues everywhere. And yeah, on to that topic, what do, because I know you have a bit of background in the whole of technology and uh, uh, computer science and stuff. So how do you actually see this thing? What are the impacts that our society will have? Because I don't think our brains are so advanced that they can develop at this pace, you know. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things to say about this. So you know that I have like a background in cognitive and behavioral neuroscience, and a lot of my knowledge of the human mind comes mostly from my study of meditation and yoga. And that's one of the reasons why like I left the US, because like I noticed that meditation is actually a much better tool to like understand the human mind than doing it via neuroscience or academic pursuits. Because like I realized that that is the reason why I was studying neuroscience to begin with, to understand, to get a better self understanding. And I realized that it's probably better to do it this way. And I learned a lot, man, just by meditating and understanding how my own mind works. And a lot of my insights about my assessment of this being a communication issue is also coming from that only. Because like when I say communication, I'm not just talking about like a two-party communication system. I'm talking about like you are communicating with yourself across space-time. Because
right.
like the things that you make in your mind right now is the things that you execute on 10 days later or on 10 years later. So there is a, like even though you're the same person, you are not the same person. You're like a you're like collection of slices of different people. And there is a continuum to it, and we all evolve in different ways, and so it's really hard to predict as to who you will be. But there really needs to be like a better way in which we connect even you from your past self to your future self, and also with you, with other people around you and away from you. So the connection of among all of these people is what I'm referring to as communication. Okay, essentially it's about like how information goes from one to the next, and how this all acts in a unified ecosystem. Because we are within ourselves, we are like an ecosystem of many different dimensions of intelligence acting together to arrive at the outcomes. So I think, to put it simply, right, it's basically all about how do we ensure that our mental models are interacting with each other. That's what I'm referring to as communication. So your mental model could, the way you're developing your own mental model within yourself could also be flawed. And that's what I'm also calling as a communication failure as well. So one of the things that I think in terms of technology, right, like you said, the whole point about like we have not evolved in how we use our little monkey brain. That's so true, because the future, the way that I see it, everything around us is developing at a crazy pace. Now the only thing is that we are not able to adjust to this pace of development, and this is only going to increase with AI. Like the pace of progression is going to increase rapidly, because we've been able to simulate higher cortical functions with AI, and that's the direction in which we're going. If you look at some of the more recent models of OpenAI, the O1 Mini and O1, there's a lot of other things coming up, and all of these are like about like how do we replicate human intelligence in a more abstract level at the forefront of human executive thinking. Um, so if you look at the human brain itself, like the base is like some of the more unconscious things that we do, like our respiration, or like our flight or fight mechanisms, the parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system. All of these are like, more or less on autopilot kind of thing.
Right.
It's as you go higher up in the cognition is where you see, the things that we identify as uniquely human. These are like, the cortical regions of the brain where, there's a layer called cortex on the brain, and the surface area of that is what makes human beings unique, because like we have a very large network of neurons, and you can see that, the with the pace the pace and the direction in which the technology is heading, right? They're able to like simulate more and more of these like cognitive functions. There are actually like things that are coming up in the tech side of things, which are like even beyond the public, what is popular in public perception. Because O1 Mini, O1, these are like popular things, but there's like entirely different architectures of predictive, thinking that they're developing. Like for example, there's something called the joint embedded predictive architecture, in
Okay.
which like there's like multiple layers of these networks, and each specialize in their own synthesis of like information. So it takes a certain uh, information and then breaks it down logically, and it can arrive at like a logical plan for how to operate. So it goes beyond like verbal manipulation, verbal token manipulation. That's what chat gpt is, like it's basically like taking words and breaking it down, and then like reconstructing the words according to patterns that is observed in billions and billions of data points that human beings naturally you know talk in. So it's kind of like a reverse engineering of the rationality that humans use. But this one is like a more closely replicated way of like predicting human cognition, by having that like multi-layered approach, because that's how the brain does it too. We have like multiple layers of like processing information that results in our final outcome. So these kind of things are happening on the tech side. Now, when you have these kind of things, obviously the pace at which we are progressing as a human civilization is going to, expand rapidly, and that is where we are very different from previous eras of technological development, because the pace was never this high ever. Especially with I don't know if you've been following some of the news with related to AI, and how it's like helping with the design. Like actually the O1 is like 27, like I don't know the exact numbers, but it's like better than the best mathematicians at solving mathematical problems. It's like literally and much faster, of course, but also like more consistent. That is what they've been able to demonstrate with the O1 model. And also like there are like markers of like AGI tests, okay, artificial general intelligence tests, that it's O1 is passing these days. So it's able to like solve design problems and accelerate the progress of science, because to perform any kind of science, right, it takes a lot of money, because like so many people are involved, so many things have to pass, and because of the prohibitive cost, the pace of scientific progress is also limited. So when we have things like this, we can leapfrog into scientific innovations that would accelerate even like technological adoption and commercialization of these technologies. And now everything is moving breakneck speed, except for our own biological or individual personal evolutions. Biological evolution, it's more or less frozen. I mean, I don't know, even if it's happening, right? It's happening at such a low pace that you can effectively think it's frozen. But in terms of like personal evolution, our individual personal evolution, unless individuals get to a point where they are choosing to compete with the pace of external progress, right, they are not going to be able to be on top of it. They will always feel defeated, and you can see that this is the narrative. Everywhere you go, people are struggling and suffering, and it's almost like a meme fest of like people exchanging each other's miseries, because they're not able to keep up, and everybody's complaining about inflation. Everybody's complaining about like how the past used to be so much better, and now nobody has the wealth, because like every points of wealth are concentrated in the hands of these few people who have made things happen. All of these things are the consequence of reality changing way too fast. And you can see that, if you go to some of these societies, for example, the Amish or other kind of societies where they've kind of like consciously frozen their progress of technology, you will see that these people are, they're living more or less consistent lives across generations. So I mean, obviously there is also like influences from outside at any point, like but because they're fairly isolated, they do not have as much instabilities. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong, Maybe if I delve deeper into how the dynamics of Amish society, maybe I'll see that they have their own generational issues. But in the general population, I think that unless individuals choose in large numbers to become, instead of complaining and whining about like how everything is changing too fast for them, if they actually dive deeper within, evolve spiritually, and keep up with the pace of the external reality and make sense of what's happening in such a way that they're able to create an accurate sense of the mental model of reality, then I think that large number of people are going to either become suicidal or infertility issues, or there's something is going to happen that's going to prevent the rate of human population multiplication. And I think that the eventual destination that we're going to is like a diminishing of the volume of human population and increase in the quality of human population. That's where we are heading, because the current rate is unviable. Like large number of lineages are going to like go extinct because they are not able to keep up with the rate of progress that is demanded by society. There is going to be a large so human disturbance that is like evident. It's going to happen for sure, because the economics don't support any other alternative. There is no fucking way that you can have universal basic income. That is never happening. There is nobody who has an understanding of how economics operate will tell you the same. So you know so the eventual inevitable consequence is that like you simply cannot sustain unless you are evolving individually and you are somehow making yourself valuable despite this intense competition, not just from a highly globalized society, but also from these artificial competitors that we have these days. So that was a long speech, but yeah.
Yeah, firstly, onto the universal basic income, it's outright stupid. I mean, you'll have the same thing. You'll be printing more and more money, and the inflation will be at 12, 13, 14, 15%. So, what is that money? That would be worthless pieces of paper. I mean, it will skew economics so bad that we'll go for a ride. But yeah, I guess of course, human beings have been able to live on this earth for, well, it's not been that long, but for a comparatively longer amount of time, because we have been able to adapt to the changes that the society or the mother nature threw at us. But of course, I don't think even our brains are ready for that level of adaptation. I mean, all of us, some of us will, of course, succeed in it. And that's why I do resonate with what you say, that there will be a huge decline in the number of people. And I guess what issue currently humans are facing is that we have had a long time of pretty calm times, and we kind of forgot. I mean, Buddhism beautifully depicts that there's no end to suffering in human life, and these kind of ideas, I guess, will re-emerge in the society with the emergence of AI, because uh, uh, personally, according to me, philosophies develop when humans have free time. I mean, that's what has happened to almost all of the, even in the Greek world. People got the time when they settled down, and then there was great political thinkers like Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and whatnot. So I guess these kind of philosophies, when they'll come to uh, come to surface, then I guess a bit of human life could see a bit of evolution, because I don't think us evolving at a speed that would match with the level of technological advancements. Because personally, I think the speed will increase over time. Like you also said, that the speed of AI evolution is gonna increase. So I guess the way we can adapt ourselves is only by using our speciality, that is our philosophical brains and this post modernist mind of questioning everything. And these kind of things are these kind of things will make a difference in the long run, because with the advent of AI and the way it is doing its job, I mean, yourself said that they are able to calculate faster than what mathematicians are doing, and more accurately as well. So I guess in the longer run, the humans will not have to do these. I call them manual labors, because uh, the manual workers work with their hands to create something, and the mathematicians and the people who are in educational advancements also work with their brain to create something that would help the human civilization. So I guess in the longer term, we as humans would not do these kind of manual labors, and will more be inclined towards these philosophical ideas or spiritualistic ideas that would, I guess, help us reach fulfillment. Of course, there are challenges with AI, but I personally view AI and aligned technologies with a lot of optimism, that maybe we as humans would evolve and look to achieve well-being and uh, a sense of fulfillment, rather than this endless race that we are currently in. Uh, we are really in like a race of numbers, where who's had more money, which essentially is just a number. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that we are right now. AI is all the craze because artificial intelligence, and we're living in a society where intelligence is like seems to be the most foundational aspect of human identity. I mean, civilizationally, if you look at it, right, like we all think that the distinguishing factor about human beings is our intelligence, right? But you will start to see that AI is going to actually accelerate human evolution, as in like a collective civilizational evolution, because like now we're not going to be stuck with like bad ideas for too long, because like we will not have the survival privilege of doing that. If you do not sync up, you are going to die. That's the reality that we are in which we're heading. And I think people are still also going to realize that artificial intelligence is just one phase of this process. There is like additional phases coming up, which is like then you have like things like artificial wisdom, because intelligence is like easier to replicate than the wisdom that you get from the cumulative experience of having exercised that intelligence. And as human beings, like we have experiential advantage in that, like we can go and experience various things. This is something that AI is in our mercy of, like it can only experience the world um, capped at the competence of the person feeding in the data, right? So for us, we have like things like, I mean, you can argue about the apparentness of this free will or the choice, but the fact that we have the illusion of free will at the least allows us to go and make decisions. And it's different. I don't think machines even have that illusion of free will. We have the illusion at least. So we can go this to exercise, and we can go and orchestrate our informational, you can call it personal database or whatever, because the more and more AI becomes a thing, right? We're able to see ourselves in the light as an AI model ourselves. We were born in this biological host body, and we are experiencing everything, and all of the data that we have accumulated since birth are resulting in our model of reality, and we're able to behave in response to that. And you can see that that is what AI is. I think eventually we are going to get to a point where we are not the masters of this planet, but we are a coexisting entity in the higher echelons of the masters. And we are going to have like things like AI farms. The way that I envision things, AI farms are basically, right now you have one model, and each model has a name. But in the future, as we go, right, like there's going to be so many different models, so many different entire farms of AI models are interconnected, interacting AI models that interact between each other instead of just to us. And these things will be able to like evolve together and combine their strengths and collectively orchestrate as human beings would in a society. So we're going to have societies of AI models, and they may have their own power. for sure. And
Right.
the thing about this is that like it is existent. It's an existential threat in a certain sense, but that is the nature of anything else that brought us any kind of advantage as human beings, right? Like, so for example, when the US started developing atomic weapons, it was an existential threat, but doing it gave them a civilizational advantage, and we are constantly in competition with each other as human beings. So you have to look at it in that context, that we're creating an adversity to combat our own individual advantage, to sort of like bring about our own individual advantage. And that is going to be the reason why we have, like, we are not going to be the only species that is going to be governing the intellectual sphere in the world. And I think, as scary as it sounds, I think it is still, like a pro and con situation. There are going to be some pros and there are going to be some cons. And I believe that, I too believe that pros are going to outweigh the cons. And I just think that the quality of life of the people who have the wherewithal to, like, live and enjoy the life on this earth as a human being, they will still get to that, you know that those heights. And maybe like people who are not really, intelligent enough to acclimate themselves to this, they will perish. And this is going to be the course. And I think this is the effective prediction that I have. I think we're going to live in a coexisting kind of like a dynamic with more intelligent beings, and we'll have different strengths.
That would, I guess, be one of the more desirable situations. And this is why I was listening to you, and you pointed out this idea of free will, which in itself is a huge debatable topic. And the idea that it's actually a great idea. And I guess this is what the people of this matrix, the whole world is a matrix debate about, that we actually are just a consciousness on a host body and nothing more than that. We are living in a simulation, even though I don't believe in that, or maybe I do. So I guess the whole idea, we look at knowledge as this interlinked or interchanged subject, where at the end of the day there is this whole circle of knowledge. And that's why I'm very optimistic of AI, because I do actually believe that at the foundation we only have like three or four questions for how we think and how we have evolved. The questions that we have in our minds, the arbitrary questions like why do people die or what happens after death. So I guess with the emergence of AI, I guess we'll have much more time to ponder over these issues. And I guess there will be something like Newton's law of motion, euphoria moment, where one discovery will lead to a lot of changes and a lot of things that would see us even greater scientific as well as sociological and psychological evolution. Yeah. Speaking of that, it would be a shame if I don't ask you this. Since you have been to Gaya and especially Bodh Gaya, and I'm not sure if you are aware, but Gaya is known as one of the most spiritual places because it's a holy place for Buddhism, of course, due to Bodh Gaya. It's a holy place for Hinduism and all the three sects of Hinduism: Vaishnavism, Shaivism, and Shaktism. So, what were your experiences in that aspect? Of course, there's a whole poverty issue, and uh, now it's changing. In this budget only, the foreign minister has said that it will change, because I assume that Gaya should be developed as a huge tourist place, and it has a huge potential, especially in tourism, because of the historical and spiritual aspects. So, what did you see? Like, personally, I see Buddhism everywhere as different as a Buddhism I see in Gaya or Bodh Gaya rather. The Buddhism there is completely different. People are amazing, and I mean, that is why a lot of my ideology has a lot of Buddhist influences. So, what were your experiences, and what different did you see in Gaya as compared to Bihar?
So I've only been to Bodh Gaya in Bihar. I've also been to like maybe nearby surrounding villages or something because of people I've met over there. They took me over there and things like that. But my experience is mostly concentrated in Bodh Gaya. So I'll tell you what some of the notable experience that I guess like I've felt is that I mean, not emphasizing so much on the poverty aspect. I just think that people like for example in the market, let's say, people are one of the things that I find really shocking is the price at which people are selling things. It's really cheap. Everything is so cheap, and it's hard to imagine that they're living on things like on that kind of money. And and the other thing is that even though I mean, from your what you are just saying, like I feel like you seem to think that it's a very spiritual place. And from what I saw, I just felt like I only saw the economic struggle because like I saw that people over there didn't have as much desire and spirituality as they did for material wealth. And I felt the opposite way because like I felt like I was coming in with a lot of spiritual thing, but the people over there, they do not have that same spiritual thirst. Because if you look at it, right, like the tourists coming in there, they are coming in from around the world, and it must be strong for them to actually come all the way over here because they feel a certain spiritual vibration within them as they come. But if you look at the people over there, they are, I guess, like they are more about survival than it is about spiritual growth and expansion and all that stuff. In fact, I had a very interesting encounter. Like I met this like monk. Okay, so this guy was somebody that I encountered as I was like just like as being as a tourist. I was just like went around different places, and I just encountered this guy, and I got to know his story. He's like about his in mid 40s or something, fully shaven. He's wearing the robes, and when I got to find out that he was doing that mostly because he was unemployed, and they have a habit of feeding the monks, and he started doing that, and um, sometimes he goes to his house. Sometimes he goes to his house, and his wife like screams at him all the time. You basically took the escapist route. You basically escaped um, life, and now here we are suffering. And that guy is just like chill as fuck. Like he's got nothing to worry about. I don't know, like I don't know what kind of like internal struggle he's going through. I have no idea, but I just knew that food was such a big deal that some people are choosing to become monks just to get that respect and dignity and food. And that was very unique, and that was eye opening for me because like I mean I that's why I don't see where you are coming from in calling it a very spiritual place, because I see that the major struggle is for survival, not for spirituality. And I have this like idea that people only arrive at spirituality after their material desires are fulfilled. You're never going to have a situation where people just are born and then they are thirsty for spiritual evolution. This only happens after they've quenched their um, materialistic thirst. And some people, I mean, different people have different levels of thirst. Some of them have very very minimal thirst, and when it's done, then they go to they evolve to spiritual aspects. And some other peoples are so greedy that they never reach that point, even at death, even if they're really wildly successful outside. So so yeah, that was my impression, and I did feel like people were uh, they were like very good people, very gentle people, but there were also people who are ripping off on the tourists. Even I, as like South Indian tourist, like I was, people would fleece me, and I understand. I guess I see the necessity for them because like it's like the livelihood or whatever. But yeah, this is how I perceived Bihar, or at least Bodh Gaya.
It was funny that you had that experience. I guess wives everywhere is the same, but uh, uh, I personally come to that conclusion because, of course, I've lived in that society and I've seen people from within. And additionally, I do agree that uh, I differ a bit, but agree as well that I believe that once they are at least fulfilled, that they won't have to struggle for survival, then the spiritualism comes in. And uh, I guess I have been comparatively lucky. Yeah, it's just luck. I've been comparatively lucky that I was born into a family where I did not have to face any class-based discrimination, and uh, we have been relatively, uh, at least we did not have to ponder over what we'll eat next day. I mean, we have been, at least when I was born, we have been financially at least that much attained. So I guess the way I look at it is different, and of course, the way you look at the city is different. And of course, as a tourist, I do agree that people face several issues. But
Mm-hmm.
additionally, onto the uh, wife part,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like, what are your views on this whole uh, family structure? I mean, with the rise of DINK, do you think there's anything? I mean, how do you see that thing? And uh, I mean, we have recently had the unfortunate incident in Bangalore. And these things are at least in my generation. When I talk to my friends, we are not looking at marriage as even an option. People are ready to live in relationships, or have no romantic relationship as a whole. I know because of the generation gap, I'll see some different opinions, or maybe not.
Yeah. So first of all, maybe like you should explain the Bangalore incident for people who are listening, because I actually I have a this is something that I'm going to be doing with people around the world, and I would love for them to have the context as well. Like, so you are talking about the incident in Bangalore. I'm guessing you're talking about the Atul Subhash case, right?
Right.
Where this guy was basically driven to suicide, or at least allegedly driven to suicide because of harassment from his wife and stuff like this. Anyway, so my thoughts on this is that you know I I'm not really sure if I should talk as much about this, because because of the how controversial it is, but also
Yeah, but
I
rather on your personal level, like
no,
what
actually no,
impacts?
I'm just giving you some context before I talk about it, because I am going to talk about it, because there is a cost to this conversation,
Right,
because if I speak my mind fully, openly, I know that it's going to backfire at some point. And I'm not like stupid enough to think that it's just something, and right now I'm like my identity is out there. I can whatever I'm saying is going to be on my personal record, but
right,
still I am behind the principle that it's only from open communication at the expense of personal, I don't know, image or whatever, that we will actually be able to develop the narrative in society. So I am going to say what I have in mind, because I have very strong opinions on this whole thing. Because I'm 34 right now and I'm single. I'm not sure if you are married or not.
no,
Okay.
I mean, it would be weird if I'm married at 21.
I don't know. I'm just like I would rather ask than assume.
Yeah,
So yeah. So I'm 34 and I'm unmarried, and I don't exactly have like a girlfriend that I'm planning to get married to. And this is an unusual situation for an Indian man, right?
right,
And most people, they get married almost like it's like their tails on fire. It's like otherwise, if they don't do it, it's like an existential threat to their lineage or something. So thankfully, like I've grown up in a family where my parents and we are all like very, um we always like discuss things. We exchange and discuss each other's priorities, each other's desires for the family and everything. And of course, my parents want me to get married soon, um because they fear that if I get a little older, I may not have the same options, or whatever. And the other thing is that like I'm just now trying to establish my business. So I know that I'm not in a good shape to take on a family right now, because the family itself is like a business. in that like you have a vertical to manage, and you have to be the CEO of your family if you take on this responsibility, and there is a lot of financial commitment to it. So it doesn't make sense for me to go for it at this stage. And anyway, like I've been looking for a partner, you can say, like maybe the right person, at least not as a partner but as the right person, because like I don't want to jump into marriage that type situation with somebody randomly that I don't even know about, because more likely than not this person is going to become a liability to me, depending on what kind of person they are. So I'm just look on the lookout for the right kind of person, and let me tell you, it's like so fucking hard as a Indian guy, to have a meaningful encounter. I'm not going to talk about the female version of this story because that's for them to talk about. But as a guy, right, I feel like we have very little avenues for having an expression as to what we go through, because the moment we open our mouth about things that are difficult for us, we are like, overwhelmed by this like opposing noise saying that like, how dare you talk about men's problems when women are going through this. And it's almost like just because women are going through a certain kind of, it is tough, like you don't have to be a woman to know that it's tough to be a woman in this country. And but just because that is the case, then you don't shut up about your own thing, like you still have to talk about what's personally of importance to you. So that's what I'm doing. Like when I talk about some of the things that I'm going to talk about like the challenges of being a man in an Indian society, it's just to put our voice into the picture, because like I feel like it is not done enough. So I'll tell you my experience of dating in the West, and my experience of like this arranged marriage thing in India, and my experience of dating in India, and just like the general contrast between dating in this country and outside this country. I would say that the first my first ever encounters of being treated like a human being by women was outside this country, because it's like the women in this country are so afraid of men. They look at you like you are about to steal their kidneys, literally, if they do not like watch out for. So there is a certain like creepiness that you automatically get projected off if you're a man in this country. And for the longest time I just never understood it, but I think it makes sense, because like as a guy, like as a decent guy, you don't hang out with these kind of people. But I guess like there are like so many creeps out there, and they are the reason why women respond the way they do. And you are just, as a guy, like as a guy who's not associated with those kind of people, you are just facing the consequences of that through your first-hand interaction with women. Because my perception, if I have to like be very blunt about it, with Indian women, is that like I do not want to be around them. Okay, because it's like it's just that they just treat you with an inherent lack of respect, with an inherent suspicion. Like if you look at them, if you like double, like make the double eye contact, that's it. You're automatically seen with a certain suspicion that like you have an ulterior motive, and that is not a pleasant experience
Right.
for any human being. I don't care like how badly women are going through, but I still, as a human being, I do not want to go through that. So I have a very avoidant relationship with women here in this country, especially. So I have like almost like a no first contact policy. I don't talk to women just like that. They have to be very friendly to me to initiate conversation. I do not uh, tend to initiate contact. I've done that before, and I know what the consequences is. You just like immediately lose all form of respect if the moment you start like conversation with them, or like try to be friendly with them of some kind. So I just think that it's overall it's a very dehumanizing experience to try to date in this country. And I can tell you more about like some of the negative dating encounters I've had here, which is um, it's like they just like have a very there is a certain female elitism that exists. I don't know. I mean, I know for a fact that this is a very dangerous statement to be making, because like I can see the backlash for it. But I do think that there is a certain elitism amongst women in this country. They automatically feel that they're superior to men. Um, and of course, like that is not the ground reality, because the guys would not let that happen. I think that women have that tendency as a response, as like a defense mechanism to those men who look down on them.
Right.
So these women come with a very aggressive attitude of like positioning yourself above you, so that like that does not happen. That is not easy to achieve. So they have to be very aggressive to just get by. And on the one hand, I can empathize and I can see how hard of a situation that is for you to be in that situation. But at the same time, I don't find it enjoyable to have to deal with that, right? So when you're trying to date an Indian woman, it's these kind of things that you have to deal with this kind of like attitude, and you have to deal with these like it's almost impossible to please them. Like it's in general, right? Like women are a little bit challenging to please, but in India, it's like compounded. The issue is compounded because like they all have a very inherent expectation of being treated like a princess, and they don't appreciate the little things. So you have to go a large distance to achieve a very mediocre amount of satisfaction. And this is like a general thing. Obviously, I do not have the sample size to like say that this is how it is, but I've seen for the of the women who are willing to date in this country, this is how it is. I'm sure there are like different kinds of people who would not even be in the dating market, and they are probably a very different species in altogether from these urban dating ready women that I'm talking about. um, so it's really difficult to talk about any demographic as a monolith. So because we are a very diverse country, and there is within demographics there are sub demographics and things like that. But my experience as in dating as a like an average urban guy who is not a conformist, because there are a lot of people who just like follow what they see in the movies, or like they talk about the things that are popular in the popular culture immediately around them. I'm more of a like I have a diverse global experiences, and I'm coming in with a certain um, my own attitude. And I think that the situation is bad, at least from my where I stand. And I have had like successful dating encounters in this country, but it just doesn't compare, because like if you go to countries where the dating culture is established, right, women actually come into this whole situation wanting to please you, wanting to earn your respect, or wanting to earn your approval or something like that. They are also as invested in pleasing you as you are expected to be of them. But in here, right, the entire onus is on the guy. The girl's
Right.
gonna be like entirely like a fucking bitch, and she just has the privilege to feel entitled to a guy being like overly, like trying to cross the bridge 90% of the way so that she can go 10%. And that is a normal thing. Like, how many times? I mean, I don't know about you. Like, I don't know how many times have any of the guys had an issue with like a disproportionate amount of like effort coming in. That because these women are like very they have a abundance of interest. If they do not reciprocate, it doesn't matter because they keep getting attention anyway. And also when they do, um, I think these are all like very fighting statements that I'm making, because like I'm sure that somebody is going to take offense to this. But still, like, I want to have a dialogue. Whoever is disagreeing with me, I would love to talk to them to sort of like, maybe I'm wrong. I would love to have my perspective set right. But it is important for each of us to like be able to voice our opinions, and also like I think we have to create a safe environment for people to speak what they truly are going through, so that if it is wrong, then there is a way to find out. So yeah, so but the other thing is that like there is a it's almost like the women don't think men are human beings. That attitude exists in this country a lot. I've seen this in many different places because they're generally angry at men. There's so much misandry. We don't talk about this, but there is women. There is so much hatred towards men in this country, and the fact it doesn't. I mean, I'm sure you can argue that it's like justified because of the state at which women's safety is in this country or anything. And but that is more of a law on order situation and a lack of like overall um like stability, societal stability, than it is about like individual men in this country. I feel like a lot of guys are too naive or too harmless to warrant that kind of treatment. But there is a general hatred towards men. and you don't want to be dealt with that. Like, when you're a self-respecting man, you don't want to put up with that shit. So yeah, I think I'm like, like, repeating some of the things that I'm saying, but basically I don't have like a high amount of expectations of any kind of dating encounters in India, because it's just like a very subpar experience. It makes me think more about how under evolved this culture is than it gives me any kind of like attractiveness to pursue a woman in this society. Because like I'm sure there are like so many physically attractive women, but even in terms of like individual evolution, right? I feel like you're more likely to encounter women with more experience and more maturity and more wisdom outside this country than in here. Because like here we all protect our daughters like they are like some treasure to be locked away from the world. Most women grow up with very like a certain lack of exposure, and the ones that they do, right, and the ones that they do have that exposure, they seem to have this very competitive attitude towards men. They just feel like they want to put you down to maintain the status quo. But anyway, I've said a lot. I want to see what you think, because I'm curious to know your thoughts as well.
Yeah. So, firstly, of course, it's when we are talking about these issues, these are heavily generalized, and each person is unique in their own personalities.
Mhm.
But yeah, of course, there are challenges to be both a man and a woman, and well, to be honest, I guess all of the men would agree that it's more of a challenge to be a woman than being a man. But
For
that
sure.
does not invalidate the challenges that men face. And I guess those issues are even hyperfoliated in a country like India, because I personally believe that there always be a percentage of population who will be a creep, uh, who will be uh, who will be not very pleasant in any form to both men and women. And because of the population density that some of our cities have, I guess this is a this creates a huge way of suspicion that you rightly pointed out in women. And I guess these suspicions are also enshrined into women through their parents. I'm not saying that's wrong, of course, that helps in their safety and everything. But one of the major issues that, of course, whatever you said apart from that, that I feel is the communication. I mean, there's a whole apartheid system in India where men and women in schools and colleges are not even allowed to talk to one another. There's a clear division between men and women. And I do see this when, I look at the population who are older than me, my generation and the generation alphas or the younger Gen Zs. Uh, uh, it actually comes to the situation where uh, uh, as time goes on, the younger the population is, I can see a more equal amount of efforts being put on. Well, it's not actually equal. Comparatively, more equal amounts of effort being put on by both the genders in the relationship. Because I guess with a certain level of communication, both men and women are able to understand each other's perspective, understand each other's problems, and uh, the more friends you have of the opposite gender, the more you are able to understand their problems and kind of empathize with them. And these kind of things will actually create positive effects into the whole society, because people would be able to understand that not firstly, not all men are dogs,
Mhm.
as it's a common statement in the Western as well as the Eastern world, to be honest. So yeah, I guess this is one of the major uh, things that should be, according to me, done. They remove the apartheid of being a boy or a girl. I mean, I remember because in my college there was a huge population and it was impossible uh, according to that level to have all the people in one WhatsApp group for communication of all the details and notices. And the way the way they decided to distribute the population was not based on sections or not based on the courses or the generic subject they choose, but they chose to divide the population based on gender. I mean, that clearly shows the level of the level of distress that these people have. I mean, of course, if there's a girl in my group, I'm not gonna randomly text them. And if I have to text them, they're my classmates. I can just go and talk to them, man. Come on. So yeah, I guess this kind of apartheid is what creates this whole Papa ki Pari or princess treatment ideology within women as well as because firstly because there's a huge population in India, they get a lot of attention and they are kind of they feel that they're entitled for that attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because like I feel like that is something that's going to get both of us into trouble for saying that, because somehow, I mean, I'm doing this as a comparison between like how I found women here to be versus like how I find women. I've dated women outside this country as well, and there is a huge difference, man. It's just very, very huge. Because like I think that most women here don't realize that they are like that. That they are like they come across as with a certain entitlement. Because like they will do certain things which if you were to do, you would be on the line of fire. But because it's them, they will they will not look at it the same way. They will use that like female logic to like get out of the whole thing. And and that is something that I've seen over and over here again. And like I said, there is a certain they do carry like a chip on the shoulder when it comes to dealing with men. They will not go easy, as in like they will, I guess, like I said, there is this misandry whole equation where they will not treat you the same way that they treat themselves.
Right.
And yeah,
just to add what you are saying, I don't think we'll get in trouble for this because personally we
because
have
nobody's watching it probably.
that is it. But the major part is that there's a huge repository of videos on the debate club where both you and I have been advocating for women rights and equal standards of living for both men and women. And I think this should be normalized that uh, if a man or if a man is can talk about women rights, then women should also not shy away from talking about men's rights.
No, I think you're taking in a different direction. I think that what I was saying is that you know the reason why there is no backlash or something is because like we are not visible enough. Okay. That is
That
the only reason. That is the only reason. The moment you become visible enough, you think they're going to pay attention to all the good things that you said. They will only pick on the one thing that you did in your life that that is that contrast with everything else that identifies you now, because that is how things work. Okay,
in,
so you will.
in the
I think we are
context.
planting the seeds for future humiliation at some point, but it doesn't matter. I think for me at least, like I know what I'm getting into, but I think it's necessary. If you want to live in a society where you don't want to just hide away and then live this like tiny little life, if you want to be out there as yourself without a mask, that is a true freedom. And I want to work towards this freedom, because I think we have to all collectively come together to earn that freedom, where we are able to speak our minds and have the wherewithal to oppose the people who believe we do not have the right to speak our minds. So doesn't matter if it's women who's doing that to you, or like people who are elitist, or people who are the rich people who think who do not we do not have that rights, or the politicians, whoever it is. I think unless you are able to stand up for it, you don't deserve it. So this whole notion of like me putting, or no, us putting ourselves in a vulnerable situation is in recognition of the larger thing that we are aspiring for, which is total freedom of personal expression without having to hide behind privacy and things like that. I'm as Ragav, I'm as me, as myself, and you are as you yourself. We are not like behind some veil or something. And I think that needs to happen more of, where we are like coming together to achieve like a stable and safe expression of what we truly believe in. Unless we do this at large scale, I don't think we're going to enrich each other in our personal evolutions. So yeah.
And especially in this shorts generation, I guess it is so easy to be taken out of context. But
Yeah.
I guess in your case, or in my case, or in the case of thousands of or millions of men, in the case of India, I guess there was one ex-bureaucrat who said this, that why is a negative image of IAS being created in the eyes of Prime Minister Modi? And he said this in another context, but of course, people should look at it, that why a negative context or a negative image of women is being in the context of dating is being created in the eyes of the Indian men. I guess that is something that they need to ponder over, and a bit of self-reflection can, of course, go longer ways.
No, I don't get it. Like, what do you mean negative impression of women in the larger public size? Like, what are you exactly you're talking about?
Like, just to clarify,
Mm.
uh, there's a kind of negative image that women don't put enough efforts, whereas
Mm.
I've had my several personal friends who are putting a lot more efforts than their male counterparts in the relationship.
Of
but
course.
but this greater notion of women wanting princess treatment is created because that kind of situation is there in for majority of people. And I guess they would also agree that relationship, whether of any type, should be equal. And I guess the more equality they bring into the relationship, it's better for both parties.
Right. No, I think you're right about the fact that you're differentiating um like women, like into like separate groups, because I know myself, I've seen women who are very mature, very intelligent, and they put in a lot of effort, and in fact, like, they probably carry the entire weight of the whole thing, and they're so patient. And I know that in the context of those women, whatever I said must seem so offensive, but like I said, we're talking about the general patterns, not the exceptions.
Right.
And whatever I said still stands true, despite the fact there are like anecdotal evidences to the contrary.
Likewise.
Yeah. So we're talking about general patterns here. I'm talking about the general culture or the expectation. So when you go to, like, for example, if you go to a South American country, or like North America, like, the whole context of dating is very different and very distinct. And we, as a culture, like, we have very different culture. So we're talking about the culture, not the individual exceptions. I think that you have to go now because you were talking about like 2:30 you have to leave.
Uh, yeah, I guess let's wrap up in like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, we've had a very good conversation. We've talked about a lot of things. Especially this whole like women thing is like, it's been on my mind. It's really hard to find a place to talk about. It's like kind of crazy how even on Reddit you cannot speak freely. They'll fuck you up if you don't agree with them. Like, it's like that. And I think that's one of the biggest value additions for us having this conversation, is that, like, we are able to have like a nuanced conversation, unafraid of like what we're saying, because like we are the only two people. It's almost like a private conversation then broadcasted. So I think we need to have more of this. I would love to have somebody next up who disagrees with some of the things that we have talked about here, because I don't think there's much value in like talking to people who agree with you all the time. So if there was like a, you know if you have anybody in mind that I think we should talk to, or like I should talk to, I think we should approach that. And I think I'm gonna quickly set up a call amongst in the brainstorming group itself about this thing, ISSA, Indian Society of Societal Architects.
Yeah. And
So yeah.
in the meantime, of course, it's very hard to find, at least in India, because we don't value those kind of ideas. We as Indians don't value individualism or anti-conformist, because of the way our society is. I mean, it's convenient to be conformist and status quoist and keep on doing the same thing that's been done for thousands of years. So, of
you
course,
know
yes.
but you say that, but I think that's the general heuristic impression. But I'll tell you what I've found. Because we are a large nation, right?
Right.
No matter what you take, there is going to be somebody out there the odds are there, like, so what I found, like, even with starting the debate club, when I started out, like, there was an impression that, this would not have like a traction or anything. But look at how the society is, like, the group is now. It's got a lot of like very substantive individuals coming in and contributing, and they're appreciated as well. And I think that's the case. Like, we are talking about a very small uh, like group of people. Indian Society of Societal Architects is going to be a very small list set of people, and I'm sure we're gonna find stellar people for us to put together that group. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I'm glad I talked to you about this, because like I think maybe in the upcoming couple of weeks, we're gonna have like a, maybe on Republic Day, I don't know, we'll
Yeah,
have
that
like a,
would be a great. Yeah,
yeah. So I'm gonna do something to prepare that for that, so that like we can do something about this, and like make it a thing where we all can come together and um, create an active movement of like forward facing society, because like until we have numbers, right, we will not proliferate as a
right.
vision. So I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of other people who have the similar mindset about the future of this country. They want to have like a forward facing society. So it starts with all of those people coming together. That's how we grow. So I'm very confident that it'll fly. We just have to like make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, man. I think I'll let you go now. It was wonderful talking to you, as expected. So thank you so much for joining in.
thank
Any
you for
other
having.
closing notes?
Yeah, I guess it's always nice to talk to you. And yeah, I forgot to say this, but the way that you have created the debate club is really amazing. I mean, just having the vision of making a space where people are appreciated and they can put their opinions without being judged, or uh, making a space out of this silos nature of social media is a great initiative in itself.
Thanks, man. Thank you. And thank you for being part of it, because I see that you're consistently participating, and it's wonderful. So keep it up. And I hope that you can be more deeply involved, because like we're a group of volunteers. Like
Right.
I'm a volunteer, you're a volunteer. So it's not like there's no hierarchy here. As long as you are aligned with the vision, the larger vision of things, then I think we can all come together and do something more than what we can each do on our own.
Right.
So yeah. Okay then. Have a great Sunday. Let's catch up next week sometime. Yeah.
Yeah. See
All
you.
right. Bye, Prince.
Bye, Raghav.